Hi, everybody. So last time we implemented this nice toggle switch. Now we need to make it so that it changes the temperature unit and the temperature. So this will say like, I don't know, 20 something F when we switch it to C. Couple different parts. What we'll start with is creating the context. This is how we will provide it, how we will share this state throughout our components. This part would not be strictly required. Like we could just manage this with props like we have been doing, but it's very important to understand the context uh, pattern. And in many cases, it is definitely the better pattern because it lets you avoid what's called prop drilling. Let me find an example. Um, we don't have any, that's the wrong one. We don't have any particularly egregious examples yet because we don't have especially nested components. I think the most nested components we have, it would be weather card, maybe, which is nested inside main. So anytime we need to um, pass a prop to weather card, we have to remember to pass it to main and then kind of thread it through to the component that we need it. And this can be tedious, makes it easier to make errors and all that. So we're going to show you how to use a context. And I'm going to show you how to create the context and add it into app. And then I'll ask you to refer to the instructions and to subscribe to the context. So let's get started. Um, First, I'm tired of looking at the red lines. So what I'm gonna do here is just we'll create a use effect. And instead of setting default clothing items a um, as the default value, we'll make the default value a an empty array, and then we'll set the clothing items, default clothing items when we first load the component. And this will get rid of the red squiggles. Everything will still behave the same way, and it will kind of have a setup for what we'll do in the future, because this is how you'll be pulling cards from a database in the future. Now that that is done, we can create the context file, which we typically do in a separate directory inside SRC. I'm already there, so I can run code contexts and then type out the name of the context you want to use, uh, capitalize the first letter, and make it .js, not JSX. Then in here, to create a context, we need to use a React hook. And it's the, no, why are you doing that? From React. It is the create context hook, not use context. That's different. You'll use that when you subscribe, but it's create context. Its usage is actually really simple. Usually we will call the context exactly what we call it in the file name, and then you just call create context, and that is it. There are other things you can do. You can pass data here as like some starting values, but we don't need to do any of that. We can just create the context and export it. because this is a pretty simple use case. The way you use it is in app.jsx. Typically, you could use it in any component, but the idea is that you use a provider that wraps all the components that need access to the state that the provider will provide. So I'll give you an example right here. I'm just wrapping the entire application, although we could wrap a subset of the application. In fact, we could just wrap this main component at the moment, because I think that's all that for now needs access to the current temperature unit. But this will just be easier for us here. So do you see what I did here? Current temperature unit context dot provider. It is a component that is available for any context, and it's like a distributor. And we can pass it a value. So like, for example, if I do this, then the value that is being provided to components is just this string ASDF. And inside components, we can subscribe to the context and access whatever it's storing. And that's basically how you use it. And that's going to be your next step. So I want you to find the lesson in this chapter and try to set up subscribing to this context in one or more of the components where we will need it. So give it a try and then unpause the video. All right, so we'll need it in weather card, right? Because that's that's one of the places where we are doing the temperature unit. And so there are 2 or 3 steps depending on how you want to count it. First step is import the stuff you need. So we will need use context, which is different from create context. And we will need to import our context. Current import, right. No curly braces because I'm using export default, which is pretty typical. So here we are importing it. Now all that we need to do is to access the stuff it has is to, well, do this. Const, give it a name, context value, I'll just call it, equals use context, and you pass use context the context you want to use. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? It's like we're saying, I want to use the stuff inside this context, and I'm going to call it context value. And just to demonstrate what is in context value, I'm just going to do this. This will insert it as text into the web page. We could log it to the console or something like that. I think we'll get it. It won't be an asynchronous thing, but I'm not certain. So let's go see. Go to Chrome. Yep, you see there's the string. And did it also log? Yes, it is logging to the console many times. So that's how you do it. Anytime you want to use context, import the things you need, use the context, and just grab the values that you need. Now, usually it will not just be like a string value. So in this case, it actually could be a string value. Like we could provide Celsius, but what we actually need to do is provide whatever the current temperature unit is. This is what we need to set up next. We need to do a couple things. This is what I described, where was it? In toggle switch briefly. Lift the state and distribute it via a context. We actually did the distributing it via a context. Now we need to lift the state. So that's your next task. To lift the state, what lifting state means is take state that is controlled inside a component and move it to a parent component. In this case, we need to move it to app.jsx. And I mean, you could literally just move it as is, although you might want to change the name to current temp unit, but that's up to you. Of course, if you, yeah, so that's lifting state. But if you move this, well, this function isn't going to work anymore. So you probably have to move the change handler too, right? If you have a piece of state and then a function that manages changing it, they're going to have to get moved together. And then you can provide them, or at least provide this thing to the context. And once you do that, once you provide the temperature unit to the context, you should be able to see either F or C here when you click the switch, as long as you have everything set up correctly. So go ahead and give that a try now, and then unpause the video. Okay, so for this step, if we take that and put the state here in app.jsx, and I am going to do what I suggested and change the naming here to current temp unit, set temp unit. Note that there's no red squiggles because I already typed that same exact string in here. So, but there are red squiggles for set current temp unit, and that's because we aren't using it anywhere. So we can just pull this handler out and get rid of the use state function. We'll return to this, and we can just put our handler in here. And there are 3 necessary changes to make. Like we have to change these variables, and the variable and function name, we have to change it so that it matches the variable and function names that we're using. That's strictly necessary. And here's another change that is very strongly suggested. We don't want to call it handle change. It's too generic. It's fine if you're inside a component with one change handler to call it handle change, or if that one change handler really does handle all the changes inside that component. That is not the case here. So we could call it handle temp unit change. Okay, now this is the last piece, and it's so here. Let's actually go to the browser. Handle changes not defined. Okay, so we can see that this is going to be a problem. Let's just get rid of that for now. Go back to the browser, refresh. Okay, it says F, right? You see that? It says F. It doesn't say ASDF anymore. So that means that what we have set up here with the temp unit, passing it to the provider, that is working. But it is not updating. The reason it isn't updating is we need to actually pass this function to our toggle switch component in order for it to use it here. We could do that via props, but we would need to do some prop drilling. And since we already have a provider, Well, let's add it as a second value right here. Now, look very carefully at what happened. I'm not sure if this will happen to you. It's an auto completion that VS Code will do that is not good. So let's go to the browser, refresh. Oh, it's actually not even showing this at all because it's saying functions are not valid as a React child. So basically, the problem here is we don't want these parentheses outside. Um, it it is doing something that is not what we want to do. What we need are another set of curly braces. And this is what you typically will see. Basically, all that's going on here is we have an object with a current temp unit property and a set current temp unit property. That's it. Okay, now it's completely broken. And that shouldn't be surprising because objects are not valid as React children. We can't embed an object inside our React, right? But the object has a current temp unit function. It has a current temp unit, what do you call it, property. That's what we want to provide. Current temp unit. Context value.current temp unit will give us the value of this property. Refresh the page. Now it says F again. Okay, so successful there. Now subscribe to the context in toggle switch and use the current temperature unit there. That's your next task. And give that a try. So here's going to be the same exact thing. Import. This we can put up top. Get the value. Use the value. Context value dot handle temp unit change, I believe is what I called it, right? Let's see. No, apparently not. So what is, oh, okay. So the issue is I passed set current temp unit and not the change handler, which is what I should have passed. There we are. So now it's working, right? Now it is working. So there's one other thing. This is typically not how we would do it, like context value equals use context. Instead, we would use destructuring, which is something that you have done plenty of times before. And I'm going to leave this as a to-do. To-do, destructure the current temp unit. And then over here, destructure the handler. It's not really strictly required, but that is the common way to do it. So the last thing that we want to address here is how to, well, no, I guess there's a couple more things actually. First, how do we change this temperature unit? Try to figure out how to change the temperature unit, and keep in mind what what we're really trying to do. All that we want is for an F or a C to display here, depending on the value of this thing. So give that a try, and then after that we'll work on the temperature conversion. Okay, so this is actually very simple. when you think about it, but it might once you realize all that you need to do. Context value dot current temp unit. This is going to be, oh wait, we need to, sorry, that's wrong. What am I doing? All that we need to do is put this current temp unit inside curly braces. That should be all that we need to do because it's already an F or a C, right? We're just using it right here. We already saw that it's an F or a C. We just need to put it in the correct place. And if we go here, there it is. So finally, how do we address the temperature, the actual temperature? And to do this, the best place to do it is in weather API.js, where we're parsing all the rest of our weather data. And here we have a parsed data.temp property. Well, my suggestion is this is how I would do it. Change the temp property to an object and give it an F property, which stores the Fahrenheit temperature. Now this is going to break something. So at this point, I want you to again pause the video and try and figure out how to fix what it's breaking. Don't forget to read errors in the console. Okay, refresh the page. This looks familiar, doesn't it? Objects are not valid as React child. Found an object with keys F. So we're trying to stick an object in as a React child, like here, for instance. It used to be just a string with a number. Oh no, a number. It used to be a number. That's fine. You can put a number in the JSX. Now it's an object. Cannot put an object in the JSX. But the solution is really quite simple. Put the number in the JSX, not the object that contains it. That's it. That's all there. That's the solution to this right now. It won't help us change the temperature, but that will clear the error. Although we probably have to do it in main.jsx also. No, we don't. We're not even using the temperature there. So that is a task for you. Display correct temp, make temp change with context, make temp unit change with context. I'm also going to put another to-do on here. Filter. This is a task that I'm not going to cover in a video. Filter item cards based on weather. So you can try and figure that out also. So here, let's make sure that this is working. Yep, so we've got no errors. We're back to there not being any errors. Now, we want to add a C property, parsed data.temp.c equals, and I'm just going to put some question marks here. And let you figure out convert F to C, and that's what will go there. You can Google it. You'll probably, if you Google convert F to C using JS, you'll get something that will be usable with just a couple changes, probably. So now, the last question that I want to deal with here is how do we vary the temp so that it matches the current temperature? And this is actually very, very similar to what we're doing here. Remember, this value is either F or C. We can use a JavaScript expression like this as a key, like so, as a key to access an object like this. Context value dot current temperature unit. We just stick that inside these brackets. This will access the either the F property of temp or the C property of the temp object, depending on what the current temperature unit is. And let's just see if that works. It's possible there will be errors. No, not even any errors here. So you see how that is working? This is basically the very important thing to remember is that anytime you refer to a variable or an object property, it resolves to the thing that it stores. So this is either going to resolve to an F or to a C, depending on what it is storing. And then it's just going to access the corresponding property of the temp object. And well, that is about everything for now. Join me next time when we move on to some other tasks.